Hey folks, wanted to answer a quick question for Jackie, who submitted us a question through the Kentucky Fear Free Riding page that I've had the opportunity to answer some questions for. And her question was super neat. It had to do with blind horses and how we should go about working with them. She's at a barn with one of her horses, and there's a horse that's out in the paddock that she's super interested in working with, and this horse is blind in its left eye as far as she knows. This horse, when she approaches or anybody approaches it, it always tips its head to the right, and they know there's some vision issues. It hasn't been tested to see if it's completely blind, and of course it still has vision in its right eye. So she wanted to go ahead and see wanted to go ahead and get some thoughts on how she should go about working with this horse. She's never worked with a blind horse before, and I've had the opportunity to work with horses of different sorts, whether they've been blind, they were born blind, maybe in one eye, they've gone blind over time and they're only blind in one eye, or perhaps they're blind in both eyes. So there's a lot of different situations, and so Jackie was looking for some thoughts on how she should go about working with this horse. So what I would suggest, Jackie, when you go to work with a blind horse, I wouldn't approach it, let's say I would and I would not approach it any differently than I would with a normal, let's say a normal horse, or a horse that has regular vision. And that when I break that down, the things that I would change are my expectations and how long, let's say the time frame that I'm going to expect things to take, and perhaps my approach, because the horse is missing one of its major senses. I mean, horses are prey animals, and for them to rely so heavily on the wild, or in the wild, on their eyesight from predators, we have to realize that if they lose their sense of sight, then either another sense would be heightened, or their self-preservation is really going to be amped up compared to, let's say, a horse that has normal vision. So those are some thoughts that I would really take into consideration when working with this horse. And Jackie did share that this horse is very skittish, and that she's been able to get up to it and rub it on the neck just a little bit, but the horse is still very hesitant. So Jackie, here's kind of what my initial thoughts are about this horse, or in this situation. First, because the horse is able to see on its right side, I would start on the right side with this horse, and I would really focus on building its confidence in that regard, and being on that side. Because if you start on the left side, the horse is going to be very worried, because anytime you approach this horse, it's already trying to put you on its right side because it feels more comfortable with you being there. So I would start on its right side, and I would go about the exercises that I would do would be the same. I would go ahead and if you're going to per se start this horse in a round pen, I would work on getting that horse to move its feet around me and getting control of how fast it goes, which direction it goes, and then also we'll work into the change of direction. But at this point, I wouldn't be too worried about the left side of this horse until you and this horse have had a bit of a time to spend together and building a bit of a connection between you two, because a horse like this is going to be a very, very highly intense horse in self-preservation. So I'd start on its right side, and then I would be taking something such as like a flag, or maybe some sort of an extension of your arm, and I would be trying to figure out where that horse's range of vision is on its right side, because that horse might be going blind. We want to see where that horse is comfortable, because if you were to get around to its hindquarters, that horse may feel so frightened that it feels the need to fight versus take flight and leave. The horse might go ahead and go to kick at your flag or something like that. So that's how I would go about. I would want to find out where this horse's vision is and where this horse feels comfortable, and then I would go about some basic groundwork, getting control of being able to send it out around me, and then get its hindquarters, being able to rub all over it, and just do the basics of what I would say starting a horse and doing some basic ground control. The things, like I said, would be my expectation and the time that I spend and what I expect from this horse would be different. And when you start to work towards the left side, the side where the horse may not have any vision or a weaker vision on that left side, then I would definitely have to change a few tactics, because horses rely so much on, whether if we're riding them or even on the ground, they rely on being able to know where we are. And when we're on them, they can feel us. But on the ground, a lot of times it's a sense of sight and them having a self-awareness about where we are in conjunction with where they are. You'll notice a lot of times it's like a pocket of air on the groundwork. When you get to a level that the horse understands that they move off of us when we, per se, let's say we're trying to move their shoulders and we step towards their shoulders, they were to step away with their shoulders. And so with a horse that's blind, they're not able to see that. So you would have to change a bit of a tactic, and it might become more of a physical feel that you have to establish with that horse, and that horse becoming comfortable with a physical touch on that side, and then growing to an understanding that, hey, you can feel comfortable with this. I'm not going to do anything to hurt you, but you can also feel confident in knowing how to react when being asked of something. And so really consistency and patience and timing and your expectations are going to be key with this horse. I know from the context of the question that I would be very, very stern that I would not anthropomorphize this horse. A lot of times as people, we sometimes start to feel sympathetic towards these horses. And if we look at a horse like this that was out in the wild, we would know that these horses wouldn't make it. They wouldn't last very long because of their inability to see. Something like a predator would come along and the natural selection cycle would kick in. But these horses, do have the opportunity to keep living and to be in a situation like that. So I would be very sure that you stay safe and you grow your understanding of how these horses on a natural sense are going to react and how they are around people, and then realize that with a blind horse, it's only going to be amplified. It's going to be heightened. And so with your understanding, I'd say, to make sure that you put yourself in a position to where you can stay safe around a horse like this, because these horses are great learning opportunities for anyone that has the opportunity to work with this. And they're not very common cases, let's say, but I've had the opportunity to work with a handful of horses that have come from different, whether they were born blind in an eye, or they've gone blind over time, or I've had some that have already turned up at a barn that had gone blind over time, but people have taken the steps to educate those horses before they went completely blind, because this particular horse had gone completely blind, but they had gone to the point of putting a verbal cue to a lot of things to help this horse stay safe and understand. And when these horses start to realize that you're not going to put them in a position to where they're going to be potentially hurt, then you go ahead and, like Shelly just said, they're very aware, and that was kind of what I was going about. When they lose one sense, something else is going to be heightened, when I was referring to her, and that's exactly right, Shelly. And so when you put like a verbal cue, this horse that I was just referring to a second ago, they would say step, and that was the verbal cue, and that horse had been taught before he lost all of his vision that he needed to raise his feet, and this horse had got it to the point where he could raise his right front, his left front, and then his right rear and his left rear feet, or his hooves, and he did that going into the barn, or if there was something on the ground, they could say step, and he'd do it, and he'd kind of reach around, he'd feel around, and then he'd take that step. And so they put a verbal cue to it, and that can be a very big thing. It's going to be about making this horse feel safe and confident that you are there to help him throughout the way, and you're not going to put this horse in a position to where they feel like they need to save themselves, and that actually what you want them to do is when they do get nervous, they start to look for you, and they start to look towards you for a bit of guidance. Now, with that being said, you don't want them to look on top of you. You don't want them to get so nervous and they're like, oh gosh, save me, and then they try to jump towards you. There has to be that respect that, you know, you have your space, they have their space, and they can feel safe and very confident within themselves, but then also when they aren't sure, they can look towards you for some guidance. So Jackie, that is a very interesting question that you've asked, and I sure hope that some folks that may have had the opportunity to work with these horses, if you guys would please share your stories and share your experiences, or if you know someone else who has, then tag them in the comments below and ask them to share their experiences, because you know there's definitely not as many of these opportunities around for people that are come across them to learn from. But I think that even when you're not working with blind horses, you start to learn a lot from these horses when you go to work with a horse with normal vision. And there's definitely some aspects of what I do now that when you think about a blind horse and the opportunities I've had to work with them, that have helped me along the way. So if you guys have had these opportunities, definitely share your experiences with Jackie below. I'm going to be sharing this video with her if she wasn't able to tune in for it. And if you guys know anybody, tag them in the comments below. And so let's try to, I just want everybody to grow together, share our experiences. We all can learn from each other and the different horses we've had. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll catch you later.